Well, Road to Nationals, week number 1 has come and gone, and basically exactly what everyone expected to happen happened. The number 1 point getter, of course, in weekend number 1 of our RTN season being Kano, because everybody expected Kano to be number 1. So let's talk about it and talk about how this is going to change, because I'm going to tell you right now, things are going to look different this week. So first things first, yes, we should address the elephant in the room. Kano apparently got 48 Living Legend points, and there's some contention and discourse online trying to make the argument that maybe some of the wins that Kano received were people accidentally entering KO instead of Kano because they are so close in name to each other. Nevertheless, we are going to assume for the purposes of this video that everything is on the up and up, and Kano actually did take the first place position. I made this little spreadsheet. Let's see. It doesn't show because of course not. So let's just cut it over here and let's move it on over right into the center so we can all see it. Now let's zoom in because of course we're doing, God bless America. Why can't we have nice things? This is, I guess we'll do. This will no, I'm just gonna cut it. Forget it. I'm gonna cut a picture out and I'm just gonna show it on the screen. Forget I said a thing. So as you can see with this breakdown, if Kano got 48 Living Legend points, that means he picked up 12 different RTN wins, which is kind of huge in the grand scheme of things compared to a lot of these other heroes. But in some cases, it kind of makes sense based on the meta, particularly with so many players cutting Arcane Barrier in their lists. Like, I've spent a good amount of my past few weeks looking at a bunch of competitive lists, watching a bunch of people play, and then playing a bunch of games myself. And one thing that I've noticed throughout is the general disrespect for Arcane Barrier and Oasis Respite in sideboards. That card is incredibly powerful, and when it's not being played, Kano can just walk around and basically get free wins. It doesn't matter if you're running AB3. If Arcane Barrier is low, though, in the meta, Kano just finds wins. And if Oasis Respite is gone, well, Kano just finds RTN wins, apparently. But following directly behind Kano are the two heroes that a lot of people expected to be at the top of the meta, and that's KO and Dash. Both have really good matchups into the field. KO is just one of the better aggro decks in the form. It's basically Fi now. KO is Fi, and he plays incredibly well, especially if you're a new player and you're trying to just pick up the game. KO is a fantastic option. Can both play a mid-range but also a very aggressive style in the deck, and I've played a lot of KOs on Talishar lately. And yeah, there's a lot of hype around the hero for good reason. He puts up big numbers and did win a battle hardened off the back of Yuki. So everyone kind of expected that one. Dash being the sort of dark horse, because Dash is always sort of a dark horse, except for in this meta. I feel like this meta is like the Dash coming out party where everyone's just talking about Dash more so than metas before, and she's showing up in RTN wins, picking up 8 wins overall and 32 points, finally making some headway towards that well, I guess she's always made steady headway towards the Living Legend format. Nevertheless, picking up 32 points and showing why she can be so dominant in a meta that hasn't really figured itself out, and for once I think may not really figure itself out to the same degree that we've ever seen before. And Dash is a good pick into it, because if you're playing against a bunch of Guardians or against a bunch of Brutes that can't block, you can go into the switchboard style Dash. You can play Slab Dash and very defensively. You can play a more boost style Dash and be successful. It has good matchups all around. But then we go down the list and we see Victor and Dromai. And I said this on stream that I am actually struggling to explain how this is not just a Dromai meta, because I feel like the more I look at Dromai, particularly the maybe Big Dragon or sort of a mid-range style of the deck where you can play some value Big Dragons and the rest of it is basically just like aggressive stuff like you would play in a more redline list, I struggle to see how that has terrible matchups in this current meta. Yes, it's not great into, Rhinar. Like, it's not great into Rhinar, but are you really expecting a ton of Rhinar and like the ninjas are really pushed down, and so if you're worried about ninjas, they're kind of out of the way. You're basically up against a bunch of like mid-range aggro decks, which you kind of eat up, and then guardians, which you also can kind of eat up if you're a good player. You have to be a good player, but I feel like Dromai just feels like the standard bearer for this meta. I know she's not sitting at the top, but like, come on. To me, it just feels like a Dromai meta, which is a crazy thing to say because people are always going to look at Dromai and say she's like, you know, B tier, A tier type hero, but I'm struggling to see how this is not her meta to just go crazy in, but I guess it depends on a variety of things. And you know, to their credit, Victor has equal amount of wins, and there are heroes that are above that. Victor just showed up and showed out, and people are literally just asking the question now, why are we playing Bravo if Victor is an option? But 6 different RTNs did get taken down by Victor, or excuse me, by Bravo this time, and those players could have played Victor, perhaps, but Bravo still takes it to the house and actually finishes the job in the more aggressive, more Tunic style list that's been floating around for like the past 6 months. I would imagine that is the style of list that we're seeing. People are trying to kind of tinker around right now with Bravo and build him more towards the Clash side of things, but I feel like the Tunic Bravo is the Bravo of choice right now. So if you're sitting down to an RTN this coming week, I would expect more of that Tunic Bravo, a good number of, you know, like attacks that they can very easily dominate. Expect some number of pummels playing off the Tunic to get extra value, things like that. Kasai and Dorinthia, the 2 warriors, both picked up 5 wins, and I am just a huge lover of Kasai. I'm going to play in an RTN this weekend, I believe. I'm going to drive over a couple hours and try to play in an RTN this weekend, and I'm probably going to bring Kasai. I've been playing the deck solid for the past 3 weeks, and you know what? At this point, if I don't bring it, I'm going to like panic pick Dromai and just run that out there, but I feel like Kasai is so nice into this meta that is full of mid-range aggro decks. She is probably just a better mid-range aggro deck than a lot of these other heroes. I would even say to some degree KO. I have played a good number of matches into KO, and that matchup does not feel unfavored from the Kasai side. And yet Dorinthia can also do the same sort of things that she can do, and she can just push crazy amounts of damage if you don't respect the blade. Katsu, Prism, Azalea, all sitting around 4 and 3 wins respectively. The Prism number I kind of expected to be a little bit bigger, but she is incredibly difficult to play. And you know what, she's still at the very heart of the matter has some struggles in this meta to go into. Like, you don't necessarily love certain matchups unless you can hit like certain infinite loops to just make yourself feel better. Like, there are still just tough matchups, and she's really hard to play. I did try my best early on and more recently to put it together, and yeah, it's a challenge. It's not easy, and I was not very good at it. Nevertheless, a smattering of other wins from Bolton. Reinar Levaya picks up a win. A random Vinset win is super cool. Phi and Azuri, but then you look at the bottom, and unfortunately no wins for the bottom several, 8, I think, down at the bottom with Max, Riptide, Teklo, Vossen, the Dash IO, Betsy, Olympia, Viscerai, Arachne. None of those heroes picked up a win in week 1, but let's talk about what we're about to go into, week 2, because if this number is true, and if Kano did indeed hit 12 wins, then this meta is about to turn on its head because everyone is going to be changing up their list and teching for Kano. It's funny because if I would have gone to an RTN last week, I probably would have run Kasai, but in the back of my mind, I would have probably, maybe I would have even brought the deck. I probably would have brought my CC Kano deck and just decided on the fly right before the event started whether or not we'd be running it out there, because there's just so much disrespect towards it. I don't think that's going to happen this week. I think people are going to start teching in Oasis. People are going to start bringing more AB. They're going to relook at their lists. They're going to change their sideboards. And I do want to point out that this is very much local meta dependent. And so it's very possible that around the world, or in your local meta, specifically around the world, that there's a Kano or 2 or 3 that just benefited greatly from the fact that people in that local meta were not running AP. So you have to make the call yourself as to whether or not it's worth it for you to run but I think we're going to see a large uptick in Oasis Respite in the sideboards, just specifically to take advantage of Kano's trying to maybe come out of the woodwork. And it'll probably push Kano back down the wins board, but we'll see if that adjustment is made. I very much expect a couple of things to happen as well. I think KO is going to continue to be strong in the meta. People are going to continue to run it out. It's the Fi of this new meta. It's the aggro deck that is easy to pick up and run out there. There's a lot of decision points, just like with Fi, but I feel like this is the Fi of the meta, and people are going to gravitate towards it continually. It did score a bunch of points from both this event and the Battle Hardened win from previously. And then this is the other one I expect. I expect Victor to rise in popularity. I think Victor's also one of those decks that people saw it featured around the world a little bit more this week, and in looking at it, they can start to see the power. Personally, and I think this is true of a lot of people, when you looked at Victor originally, you said, okay, why? Like, what? Show me the value in this effect, in this hero. Show me why I should play it. And I think when people actually watch it played, watch Victor do his thing, you actually start to see what the point is of the deck and where the value comes from. And I think when more people see that, as more people have seen that this first week, this number will go up. So expect more Guardian in the form of Victor. I very much believe that. Now, what are you going to pick if you are going to see these things? Dash, Inventor Extraordinaire, specifically Slab Dash, I think has a real good shot to counter. Maybe you do the old sideboarding, and then maybe you bring in Oasis if you can even splash that for Kano, and then you play defensively for KO, and you play maybe defensively and set up like items for Victor, and you try to take advantage of the mid-range nature of many of these decks that don't want to just end the game in 4 turns. And you play for a long game, and you could pick that and run that out there. But again, I just struggle not to see why Dromai, like this feels so much like a meta where Dromai can just thrive. If you're on a value-based, decently mid-range dragon list, I say mid-range meaning that you're playing some of the more value dragons like Uvia, Necria, and maybe even splashing Vincerikai if you're spicy in the aggro side of things. But if you're splashing some of those Uvias and those Necrias, this feels like such a good place to be. And if you know how to play into Guardians, specifically block out Guardians, like the Victor style Guardian, which actually I feel like Victor doesn't have in some cases as many like poppers that you would see. KO has very few poppers in general because they're all, well, many of them are 5s. And then you know how to play against a Bravo who can play a little bit more defensively. If you know how those matchups go in the late game, and if you have Remembrance in your deck, I feel like she's just a slam dunk. And strangely enough, like if you're up against a bunch of mid-range decks, maybe you could play Viserai. I'm literally just throwing this one out there just for my buddy Breezy because he wants someone to win an RTN with Viserai, so this number finally goes away from 500. But the OTK list is actually doing fine. It's doing fine, so you can definitely see the splash there. I will probably be playing Kasai this weekend if I get to drive the distance and go play in the RTN I'm signed up for. So, yep, I'm going to probably be playing Kasai in that one. And I want to see this number go up as well. This is the last one I'll talk about. Levia feels like that very complicated Prism type deck where if you can just get there, she gets the value and the damage that KO has, but she's way more complex to play like a Prism. And so I feel like she's like the underdog, most powerful decks of the format. It's very strange. But this right here, all of these heroes getting points over the past, look at this, over the past few weekends, this speaks hugely to the meta that we're in. Everything is wide open. You can play what you want to play, and the world is your oyster. If you know how to play it, you can be rewarded in these RTNs because a lot of people put up wins, and it's a lot of different heroes. It's not 3 heroes. So that to me is quite exciting. and also equal parts frustrating if you're just trying to pick a deck and run with it. So have fun in this next RTN season, and check back tomorrow or maybe the next day, because I got a fun video in the works. But if you enjoy us just hanging out and talking during your lunch break or whatever, make a number go slightly higher, because numbers going up make this one turn to 6. And that number being a 6 is cool. I'm running out of like original things to say about, I don't know. Tell me why I should make this number go to a 6. We'll find out. As always, thanks for watching.